Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Mostly Accurate. I am your host, Monica. If this is your first time here, I'm really glad that you found us. If you're a regular, thank you for continuing to trust me with your ears and your nervous system. Today's episode is definitely like a whole nother ride again. We are talking about things that range from deeply unsettling to deeply unhinged to somehow very wholesome at the end because, I just can't leave you. I can't leave you in the dust like that with all that stress. So, we are starting with a true crime story that genuinely made me pause and say, what the actual F is happening here? And then we're diving into HBO's The Cult of the Real Housewife. I have been waiting forever for this to come out. And when I first saw that it was coming out, I was like, is this like a hoax or something? But it wasn't, and it actually happened. So this is where religion, power, money, and reality TV collide in a way that feels less entertaining and more concerning. And because I refuse to leave you emotionally wrecked, we are ending with a real life check in, my little mom moment, talking about snow days, toddler updates, plumbing mishaps. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's get into this. Before we get into cults, religion, Bravo TV, and psychological manipulation, I need to start with something that made me stop scrolling, sit literally straight up, and shout out loud, what the actual F did I just read? Because this week, and I just was scrolling through this last night, I was not going to do a current event segment today, but I just have to cover this. This week, Pennsylvania police actually uncovered what can only be described as a horror movie that opted out of the special effects. So this happened in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. I might have said that wrong, but that's the way it looks like it's spelled. So we're just going to go with it. Which, if you don't know, this sounds like a place where the biggest crime should have been like stealing tomatoes, from someone's garden. But not not what's happening there. Police arrested a 34-year-old man named Jonathan Gerlach after a months-long investigation into a repeated like cemetery break-ins or something like that. I guess that was happening. Like he was just, I don't know, trying to be Ed Gein Jr. or something. And when I say break-ins, I don't mean like somebody like hopping the fence and smoking weed behind the headstone. Like, no, not at all. This man was allegedly prying open mausoleums and underground vaults at Mount Moriah Cemetery with a crowbar. Sir, that's not curiosity, that's intent. According to police, Gerlach was caught walking back to his car with a crowbar and a burlap sack full of human remains. A burlap bag. Yes, not a backpack, not a duffel, a burlap bag. Like this is 1897 and he's about to trade bones for beans or something. And then inside of that bag, human remains. Skulls, bones belonging to everyone from children to, grandparents. Completely messed up, which this is where it stops being weird and starts being like just deeply, deeply disturbing. And you guys, listen, that wasn't even the worst part because when police searched his home and his storage unit, they didn't find just like a few bones. They found more than 100 human skeletal remains. 100. Holy crap. Like, that's mind blowing to me. Some of these remains were actually believed to be hundreds of years old, and some were not. One skeleton still had a pacemaker attached. So, yeah. That's a detail for sure, which means that, this wasn't some historical anthropology hobby. Okay, this was recent. This was real people. This was real families who thought that their loved ones were resting peacefully, and instead, they were apparently being stockpiled like Halloween decorations in some guy's storage unit. Police literally described it as a horror movie coming to life, which is cop speak for we did not mentally prepare for this. Wow. Just this story is bizarre AF. Now, here's the part where everyone collectively asks, why? Why is this happening? Why were you doing this? And the answer is we do not fully know yet, unfortunately. Authorities are still trying to identify where all of these remains came from and who they belong to, and whether any of them were sold or traded online. Because, of course, we had to add the internet into this nightmare. Neighbors were understandably shaken because imagine finding out the guy down the street, the one who you like nod to and wave while you're taking out the trash, was allegedly running a discount museum of natural history in his house. No, thank you. Burn the whole block down, like emotionally, of course. And listen, I know we live in an era of true crime. I know this is something crazy, but I feel like we've all just kind of become desensitized to the absolute madness that's happening in this world. We fall asleep to murder podcasts like they're white noise. But this story hits different because cemeteries are supposed to be sacred, and it's about grief and memory and closure. And the idea that someone allegedly treated them like a clearance aisle for human remains, that's not edgy, you guys. That's not quirky, that's deeply unwell. This case is ongoing. Police are still sorting through the details and the remains, which means families may eventually find out that graves they trusted were violated. And that's the part that isn't shocking or sensational. That's just really sad. So, yeah, that's where we're standing today. A literal horror story in Pennsylvania in 2026. And if you're thinking, wow, this sounds like a cult level lack of empathy and control over human dignity, oh, don't worry, because we have yet to get there. Stay tuned. Okay, deep breath, guys, because today we are not just talking about reality television. We're talking about religion, money, power, family trauma, and Bravo's most unhinged casting choice since actually, no, this might be the most unhinged casting choice they've ever made. This week's segment is on HBO's The Cult of the Real Housewife, a three-part documentary that finally asked the question we've all been too afraid to say out loud while watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Mary Cosby, this woman is running a church, or are we watching a cult with better lighting? And listen, I love mess. I live for mess. I was raised by mess. But this is not champagne throwing mess. This is religious trauma, financial exploitation, and generational manipulation dressed in a Valentino and church hats. And honestly, that's way deeper than flipping a table. Mary Cosby enters the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City in 2020. She's awkward. She's blunt. She dresses like she got ready in a power outage during a spiritual awakening. Bravo positions her as the faith housewife, like the moral one, the one who brings God into the housewives, which already feels pretty dangerous because historically, when God enters reality TV, someone is about to get emotionally damaged. Mary is a pastor at Faith Temple Pentecostal Church. She also is very rich, like, multiple properties across the US, designer everything, and I don't check price tags rich. And naturally, viewers were like, so is Jesus Venmoing you directly, or how do I get this set up? Mary tells the same story again and again. Her grandmother, also known as Mama, founded the church. Mama was powerful. Mama was revered. Mama was like that girl. Mary claims that Mama's dying wish was that Mary took over the church, Mary becomes the leader of the church, and that Mary marries Mama's husband, Bert Singer. Yep, you heard that right, you guys. Her step grandfather, which is when America collectively said, I'm sorry, what is happening here? Mary says that Mama told Robert Singer, if anything ever happens to me, marry one of my girls so that she can take care of you the way that I did. And listen, that's already insane, you guys. But the documentary says that that story does not match reality, which is which most of us suspected. Here's what the doc reveals: Mary was disfellowshipped from the church when she was a teenager. And now I'm assuming disfellowship is kind of like the same as like what's that word? Like ostracized from the church or whatever. So she was considered to be super rebellious and she was just removed from the congregation. So the idea that mama would just hand her entire church and her husband to someone who was literally kicked out. Mama dies around 1997. The plan was that Robert Sr. would lead the church. At this point, Mary is estranged from her mother, not active in the church, and already married to a man named Dana Lamont. And a very important detail here: Mary was already married when Robert allegedly started praying about marrying her, because nothing says God's plan like overlapping marriages. So Mary divorces Dana Lamont, who loved her very, very much, on September 8th, 1998. 19 days later, on September 27th, 1998, she marries Robert Sr. 19 days, you guys. That's nuts. That's not a grieving period. That's like Amazon Prime, okay? Dana Lamont loved Mary. He was a church member. And according to the doc, once he became, an inconvenience, the church flipped on him. They publicly humiliated him for hours. They were like rebuking him from the church and they basically painted him as like a villain. There was even a day where things got so heated that the police were called after Mary's own mother said, "Absolutely not. This is ridiculous." And that's when the church basically split. So some of the members leave and others stay. And then Mary becomes just like the queen of the church. This is when things start getting super dark. So former members describe their church experience as public confessions, public humiliation, and obedience masked as faith, basically. People were allegedly forced into unpaid labor. One elderly woman in her 80s battling cancer was verbally abused while working for Mary and Robert until the day that she died in 2024. Members who questioned this were kicked out, they were shunned, and even banned from going to family funerals of, the member that had passed away, which is a cult red flag behavior, by the way. Just I'm going to throw that one out there just to keep that in mind. So, what else was going on? Let's talk about donations, because this is when cult experts lean forward and go, there it is. Former members describe, these emergency saints meetings where it would be Mary and Robert pressuring their congregation members to write $5,000 checks, $10,000 checks. People were cashing out their 401ks to write them over to apparently the church, and they were taking out second mortgages on top of all of this. One former organist of the church says that he gave Mary $1,000 for her birthday, which directly contradicts Mary's claim that leaked audio footage that came out that she was calling her congregation members poor, which she says was taken out of context. And, obviously Mary never thanked that member for her birthday card, but she was complaining that she only received 14 birthday cards out of her entire church. Who does that, you guys? Who absolutely just, I don't even know, like thinks they're so entitled to a birthday card from every single person that they know? Because, here's the thing. Context doesn't usually include yelling at people for not buying you gifts. So I really don't think that the audio was taken out of context. I think it was completely factual. And experts explain that like most cults rely on three pillars, and those three pillars are power, which is unquestioned authority, money, which is financial dependence, and sex, which is security, control, and inappropriate relationships. The documentary never outright says this is a cult. Instead, it says, here are the patterns, you decide. Mary denies exploiting her congregation. But when asked on the reunion show, which is just bizarre to me that this woman even just did Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which I told you before, this is like my second favorite franchise that Real Housewives has done. New Jersey's number one, and they canceled that. We're rambling here. But yeah, this woman with all this like craziness going on in her life is literally on TV. And she goes on the reunion show and, she's questioned like how she actually makes her money. And she cannot answer that, which is very concerning when you own multiple homes and a Chanel archive, basically. So the Enoch family had been a part of her church under Mama and then Mary. One of the most disturbing moments of this documentary is when Mary allegedly mocks the death of Rosalind Enoch's niece, Michael, on the show. When the family starts a GoFundMe for the funeral costs, Mary allegedly urges members to take back their donations and not to contribute. That's when the illusion finally shatters. Former congregate Cameron Williams appears briefly on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Rumors swirl that he and Mary were actually in a relationship. The one married to her grandpa, but she's kind of having a side thing with Cameron, is she? We don't know. Before he can be formally interviewed for the documentary, Cameron tragically dies from complications from a surgery that was related to a brain tumor that he had. However, Cameron was well known in the church and, he had multiple conversations with other congregant members. Sorry, that's a really tough word for me. Later, Mary's cousin claims that Cameron told her that they were having an affair. It's revealed that Cameron wanted the show to expose Mary. And Lisa Barlow, another cast member on the show, was the one who mentioned Real Housewives to him. And he allegedly got Mary on the show. If true, this wasn't fame chasing, this was desperation. Cameron had stuff that he wanted the world to know, and he was like, you know what? This is my way to expose this woman. As accusations pile up, Mary skips the season 2 reunion. She's just like, nope, I'm out, guys. Cult rumors are basically dominating at this point. She disappears from the next like season or two, and then she just mysteriously returns like nothing happened, which brings us to a very uncomfortable truth. You know what I mean? This isn't just juicy gossip. If even some of these allegations are true, this is about religious trauma, psychological abuse, and financial exploitation. Cults don't always look like, like giant compounds. Sometimes they look like churches, sometimes they look like families, and sometimes they look like Bravo contracts. Charisma without accountability is quite dangerous. So, basically, I just brushed the surface of this documentary. If you guys have not seen it, I highly recommend watching this. There is a lot happening, and I'm very curious to see what happens in the coming season of Real Housewives because it's actually live right now. I was actually watching it last night, their newest episode that was released, and it's really interesting how we are viewing Mary now, today, versus how we viewed her when the show initially came out because we were like, oh my gosh, she's a cult leader. She's like really weird and kooky. Like, what's going on with this girl? Like, is she on something? Like, it was just really confusing. And where are you stealing from your church members? Like, it was super bizarre. But now it's like they've casted her as almost like this like voice of reason in the group. And I know that Robert Senior is no longer on film. Like Robert Senior is not at all being shown on camera, and probably for a very good reason. And I'm pretty sure that coming back to the show, Mary had a lot of guidelines that she needed to be followed and a lot of topics that she didn't want to discuss. So I don't know. It's just really interesting how I think it's going to play out, especially on live TV, and especially that we have a three-part reunion in the coming weeks to watch. So, this documentary came out, I think, a week or two ago. When you're listening to this, it's probably going to be quite some time, but definitely a good watch, you guys, if you like that kind of stuff. I enjoyed it. It was very informative. So, yeah, Mary Cosby, a misunderstood pastor, a manipulative cult leader, or something far more complicated. That's for you to decide. But one thing is clear, this is not just Real Housewives. This is real power, real damage, and real consequences. And honestly, that's heavier than any reunion couch can handle. Okay, before anyone needs a drink, a therapist, a full spiritual reset after those last segments, let's just take a breath because life is still happening over here. And by life, I mean bodily functions, snow pants, plumbing disasters narrowly avoided, and just, regular old chaos that's going on. So let's just start strong. We need to talk about something that has somehow just become a complete pattern in my house. My son is still pooping in the tub regularly. This is, I don't think, on purpose or by choice. And yet, here we are. I don't know if it's like the hot water or if it's like his nervous system relaxing at the end of the day. I don't know if his body's like, yes, safety, release. Let's just poop in the tub. But apparently his digestive system has just decided that the bathtub is in fact his safe space. At this point, I don't even panic anymore. It's just like, okay, this again. Let's just handle it. I actually become a professional of the tub situations. Motherhood is very humbling, and that's all I have to say about that. On a much cuter note, my son played in the snow for the first time. And listen, nothing prepares you for watching your kid experience something brand new and magical while dressed like a tiny marshmallow who can't bend his knees. It was like probably the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. He was very confused, but he was thrilled. He tried to eat the snow because, of course, he's a child. And honestly, watching him just like discover snow healed something in me that the last two segments absolutely destroyed. It was adorable. It was so cute. I just bought him some new mittens, so those should be arriving tomorrow. And conveniently enough, it just started coming down outside. We went through this like weird like weather thing here in Michigan. I don't even know what was happening, but there was like a thunderstorm the other day and then it warmed up and all the snow melted and now it's just like the heavens opened and it's just a winter wonderland out there. So I'm really excited to get him in his giant marshmallow snowsuit again and do this whole running around the neighborhood in the snow again. And it was adorable and it was super fun. So he also has some new words. The newest word he enjoys right now is shoe. So everything is shoe. Nothing is a shoe. And when he says it with authority. So yeah, that's fun. And the best update of all, he has like chilled out on the swear words. Yes, my little sailor. I don't know what's going on. Maybe we just been reading different books. I have no idea, but I'm really excited. Like, see, growth is happening, redemption. So we're just going to call that a win until, he says an F bomb at Meyer, but we'll see. Let's see what else is going on, you guys. The dog, however, has learned nothing. She is still pooping in the house and still making eye contact while doing it. The other day, she walked directly into the bathroom and, I had to hang on to her while she pooped so she didn't, like, step in it and track it all over the house. But no shame, yet no, lessons, absorbed and, just old lady dog vibes. So at this point, I think we're just getting used to it. This is my life. I'm just surrounded by poop. I really hope this is just a phase, you guys. What else? Oh, yes. Almost flooding the house. Well, not really the house. Okay. I'm just gonna break this down for you. Michigan likes to keep us humble. We almost absolutely destroyed our plumbing. We accidentally left the hose attached to the outside spout during freezing temperatures, which, if you don't know, is basically telling your house, let's just see what happens here. Somehow, this created this like pressurized frozen situation that turned the faucet like fully on. Is I think what happened. And we caught it just in time. So basically, it was just weird. We were getting ready for work and, Jameson's letting the dog in, and he's like, "Oh my god, somebody turned our faucet on," 'cause I can hear him turning it off from, like, outside the house. I'm like, what is he doing?" And he said it was just running full blast, and we just assumed, like, one of the neighbor kids came and turned it on, but it turns out I don't think that was the situation because we didn't see any footprints. So, yeah, I think that's what happened. We left the hose attached, and it created some weird situation, but luckily, there's, like, no burst pipes, there's no flooding, and no insurance claim, thank God. Just the adrenaline of the rush of knowing that we were just minutes away from never financially recovering from this, which honestly feels very on brand for this season of our lives. So, yeah, that's how life is going. Here we are. Somehow it's still disgusting and beautiful at the same time. Constantly just one decision away from disaster, but also full of just snow and new words and small wins. And I'll take it. All right, guys, that's where we're going to leave it today. If this episode stirred something up, whether it made you laugh, cringe, or rethink how easily power can hide behind charisma, I'm really glad you stayed through it. If there is one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this: stories matter. Patterns matter. And sometimes the most important thing we can do is slow down long enough to actually look at what's in front of us, even when it's uncomfortable. And also, if your kid says shoo, if your dog poops in the house, or if your plumbing almost betrays you, you're doing totally fine. Truly. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And I'm just happy that you sat here through another episode with me or walked or however you guys listen. I love you all so very much. Please remember to subscribe, like, follow, comment. I love to have a conversation going. If you have some thoughts on Mary Cosby or any of these segments or just, anything in general, let's just talk about it. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Apple, wherever. I'm everywhere. So thank you again so very much. I will see you guys next week. Okay. Love you. Bye. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The facts are fuzzy. Our stories and opinions are just that: stories and opinions, not meant to be taken as professional advice.